олимпийский! Я должен
So,
это крикнуть,
no
понимаете?
Olympics. I had to scream it,
Мы действительно
but
поговорим с вами
understand it.
про сканер данных, как
Okay.
видите, он называется
We're going to
Sylvester.
speak about data scanner, which
Сперва пара слов
name is
контекста. Да,
Sylvester.
я в
Couple of
безопасности
about
уже
country.
больше 7 лет.
I'm working since more than
Работаю я из них 5,5
years.
в
I worked
Авито.
5.5
Авито в
in
время быстро
Avito.
растет.
I
У нас
think
уже
in this
больше 3
period of
тысяч
time,
микросервисов,
probably significant. We
больше
have more than
600
3,000
инженеров. Как вы
microservices.
понимаете, что
And
это
I
означает для
hard
безопасности?
yes, and you understand
Много
what does it mean for
изменений,
security.
много
A lot of
рисков. За этим
changes,
всем нужно
a lot of
как-то следить.
releases, and you have to
Вот
follow all of
ради
them.
этого мы и делаем
And
то, что мы
just for
делаем.
the
Да?
purpose,
Что же мы
we're
вообще
doing
сделали?
what
Что это за
so
история про
label
Сильвестра?
what kind of a story about Sylvester.
Помните, был такой классный мультик, назывался «Сильвестр и Твитти». И это, да, тот самый котик,
Sylvester and
который ловит
Tweety.
канарей.
It's that
И,
cat
как вы
that
помните, он
catches
ловил одну
canary.
канарейку и не очень удачно.
Catching one canary and it was not really successful. Our scanner works a little bit better.
Нам удалось добиться достаточно
We were
высокого
able to achieve a really high level of coverage, 78%.
мы с этим покрытием делаем, мы ищем
How
там
do we do with this coverage? We are
данные,
searching
канарейки, так
for
сказать,
data,
и
canary,
пытаемся
and
понять, действительно ли там эти данные должны
trying to understand.
быть.
Should this data be there?
Зачем
If
мы
it's
этим всем
interesting
занялись?
for you,
Давайте
why
вернемся
would
немножко
you
в
do
прошлое.
that? Let's
Давно-давно,
go
6
back
лет
to the
назад,
past. 6 years ago, we found
основным каналом взаимодействия
the
пользователей
channel
было
of cooperation between users was
что
what?
случилось?
Oh my, what happened in here?
Значит,
Things.
основным каналом взаимодействия был
The main channel of communication was the phone.
объявление. Там был
User was
телефон
publishing
пользователя.
announcement. It was a real user's phone.
Обычный телефон, никаких подменных номеров тогда не было, и в помине всем
No
было
substitution
более-менее
numbers, and
нормально. Ну,
it was normal and
вам
good
все
for
начали
everyone.
заводить
But then,
симку
then
для того, чтобы
started everybody
пользоваться
started having
интернетом, и вот это
second
всё,
seat,
помните?
use the internet, and
И мы
all
тоже
this
понимали, что,
together.
ну, как будто бы звонить
Also
не все
understood that. Well,
эти
not everybody likes
любят
when they
общаться
are being called.
голосом и так
Nobody
далее.
likes
И
to
вот
communicate by
мы
phone.
выпустили мессенджер внутренний и
So we created an internal messenger,
который
and
называется
we
«Только
created
сообщение».
another good
Что она
feature, which is called only
номер
messages.
телефона
What does it
не
mean?
светится.
One number is not shown here.
И
At least it should.
наша была задача, что сделать?
And our main
Проверить, а действительно ли
we should go and check it,
вот ту
whether
самую фичу
we
реализовали правильно,
truly realized this feature.
везде убрали
Properly
образ телефона,
have
сделав проверку.
removed
Если
phone
только
indication
то больше,
and check
пожалуйста, не
if only
показывайте.
messages have selected, then phone is not going to be shown.
Мы это делали, да, понятное дело, руками.
How we've done it? Of course, we did it manually. The first
Как вы вообще ищете телефоны? Ну,
time ago.
ты человек.
How do we search for a phone?
Ну,
For
цифры.
a human. How do we understand that this is
10 цифр,
a
там
phone?
где-то
Well,
плюс 7,
numbers.
где-то
10
6,
numbers,
где-то
plus
10
7,
есть.
some parentheses, some
Есть, правда, нюанс, что разделители не везде
dashes.
могут быть подряд
Why
написаны,
there's
в
not
основном мы
always
становимся на
against
то, что
numbers. Usually we follow
понятно,
the letter 9,
всякие разные
number 9.
сочетания.
First one, options, combinations,
Конечно,
and
есть городские номера, да, они еще живы до сих пор.
city numbers,
Это
the
нужно
cellular,
найти, посмотреть.
all this has to
Что
be
сделали?
shown.
Сделали. Ну, перпом прошли, опыт, конечно,
Well,
интересный,
of course,
сценарий
the
прогнили,
memory,
повторять опыт
scenario,
конечно, не очень
the
хочется.
was
Что мы
experience
сделали?
that we
Ну,
can be, but
автоматизировать,
have we
потому что
understood? Yes, we
контроль как
have
будто
to
должен постоянный.
because
И
well,
мы
we need a
хотим
constant
это до того, как какие-то изменения
see this
попадают в
before
продакшн.
any changes hit production.
Какие у нас были вообще варианты для автоматизации?
What other options do we have for the automation?
Машлен, к
This is
сожалению,
the
не очень
2019.
тогда еще был популярен, LLM-ки еще в будущем.
It's not
Да,
very popular.
соответственно,
LLMs in the future.
Первая мысль
regulars.
и мы такие,
That was the first idea. We had so much tried it, we looked at it, wonderful.
валидных
We have 1,000
очень удобно.
operators and none
в
that.
регулярке играть. 10
Very convenient. Let's not play regulars. 10 numbers.
Чем мы выбрали?
We
Мы вспомнили
applied
про
everyone.
шахтеров и
So
вот эту
what we
прекрасную
select?
историю
We remember
про
about
канарейку.
miners. This wonderful story about canary.
Шахтеры брали
How did it
канарейку,
work?
если
Miners took
канарейка
canaries to them. This canary
то
stopped
пора бежать
singing.
на газ.
It means it's time to run.
Всё
It's
примерно так.
gas.
Есть
Well,
некое
everything works like that.
которое мы
There's a certain value
его очень
that we
легко
already
искать,
have
потому что это
seen.
конкретные
Easy
цифры.
to search for it
Нерегулярка
because these are
на 10
specific
цифр.
numbers. Non-regular for 10 numbers, but specific.
Количество ложных сработок при этом стремится
Number of false positives goes down to zero.
это номер
So how
телефона.
does it look? This is our canary. It's a phone number.
В объявлении
We place
на сайте.
in the announcement
Дальше
on the
что мы
site.
делаем? Мы берем сканер.
We take scanner,
Пока. Да, это на уровне
some
идеи сейчас
scanner, it was the level of idea.
берем весь API сайт,
Then we
проходим его,
all the
проверяем
API the
ответы,
site, we
ищем
go
ту
through
самую
these, we check
конкретную
answers, and we search for this canary.
Все
We
здорово,
find it,
казалось бы,
good.
но есть
Wonderful.
большой нюанс. Но
Now there is some peculiarity.
собрали API,
That would be wonderful.
существуют
Well, we have
вещи,
collected API,
которые
this is
какой-то
static.
но
Last thing it's
изменения, да, вот
changing,
новые фичи,
but there are changes in future. So correct, all APIs are done, new APIs are coming. You also have to check it somehow.
как вообще у нас появляются
started
новые
thinking.
фича, новые API.
You
Да,
come
нужно
up with new feature, with new API. Life cycle has to be analyzed in order to understand where should we put it
у
together.
нас есть с вами
We have grooming,
потом
we have code writing, then we, well, develop or make git push, open pull request, merges, deploys feature into
стейджинг,
range, then deploy staging, and then into
у нас с
production.
вами динамический
It's
сканер. То есть
as if we have a dynamic stack.
вопросовый API,
You
который
can
нигде не
do
разработан.
API request,
Значит,
which is not deployed anywhere.
искать то место, где мы можем встроиться,
You
когда
can
у нас
search
будет
for a place where you can
что-то, ну, какой-то
build
тестовый
in when you deploy something, some tests, and
Поняли еще
then
момент,
we
что
understood another important thing that the sequence should not be like that.
разработчику важнее
Very
динамики
often for the
посмотреть на
developer,
то, что он
very
сделал. И он
important in
сначала
dynamics.
делает фичи-ветку,
So
потом
first
только
he
уже
deployed
открывает
the
pull
range,
request,
then
все баги
all
посмотрел,
the
очень
requests after all the bugs have been fixed.
проходит ревью, мержит,
Then he
деплоит,
goes to the review, merges, and deploys into staging.
нужно встраиваться вот в
Understood
этот
that
самый
we
момент.
have
То
to
есть у нас
build
есть с вами
inside of this.
событие
So we have this moment
до
from the push event
деплоя в стейджинг, в которой
to
мы
the deploying staging,
если мы
where we have to be able to
мы успели
fix.
проверить,
If we do it, okay, we did it. We have checked the code before it
он не должен бы был попасть, если бы там что-то
shouldn't go. If something wrong with it.
И здесь еще важный момент, что
There's another important moment here
deploy в staging
that, as a rule,
происходит
deploying
одновременно.
staging and production happens simultaneously,
И то
which means
события, они уже нельзя их разделить.
cannot be separated.
До.
So we are trying to.
Нам для этого нужны
What?
тестовые учетные записи. Да?
We need test
Конкретное,
accounts.
поэтому что мы
Something specific.
У нас есть внутренний
what?
инструмент, который позволяет
Haven't
тестовые учетные записи
allows
более-менее
the test account
настраивать и
must be queued up and created on stage.
одинаковые и для стейджинга, и для тех самых.
Are similar
Поэтому
for
здесь
staging
всё
and for
хорошо.
those code branches, so everything is all right.
Много, потому что
We need
есть
a lot of
виды пользователей. Есть обычные
There are different types of users. Regular users and content will find,
платные пользователи.
and there are paid users.
API пользователи,
Pro
которые
users,
через
API
API
users
работают как-то.
are working with us.
Я про них чуть попозже
There's
расскажу.
some companies, I'll speak about them later because
Роли.
it's a very
Вот каждый
interesting
пользователь мы берем по две штуки и как
user
да?
uses, and we have to work with all of them.
Тут есть
However,
проблема. У нас есть
there's a problem.
инструмент
We have a production
менее стабильного стейджинга.
depends from less stable staging.
Что тут может пойти не так? Ну, очевидно,
Wrong. Well, it's obvious. Everything.
может упасть. Учет
Staging can be blocked.
сломаться внезапно.
Account can disappear, break suddenly,
Нам нужно
and
потратить
to create new account, we need to spend time.
на стейджинге.
Especially if something breaks during staging, the time can increase up to 30 minutes.
Это время мы не можем ничего сканить.
All this time, we will not be able to scan anything because we don't have visibility. So what is to be done?
Решили увеличить надежность этой системы.
We decided to increase reliability of the system by our automation.
Создаем учетки сроком жизни.
Create accounts with a life period of 8 hours.
Учетка стала старше 6
If
часов.
the
Мы
account
давать
is
новую.
over 6 hours, we create a new
Как вы помните, да,
account creation. If you remember, 30 minutes approximately.
в этот момент, пока мы еще не
This
создали,
is the time while we
допустим,
do not create an
мгновение
account,
до создания,
like 1 second prior to creation. Then could be a request for scan.
мы отдаем
If it comes,
учетку, который
we
сейчас
give
6,5
count
часов.
is 6.5 hours.
Скан может длиться до
Wait.
30 минут.
scan can take up to 30 minutes.
Да, вот, да, действительно, не старше 6,5 часов по
Yes,
четко.
it's not older than 6.5 hours. The scan is up to 30 minutes, and we have 1 hour in stock for sure. If the scan will take longer, if the account will take longer, if it will drop and will ask some. Then you remember suddenly of the death of that account. Once every 5 minutes, we are checking if the account alive, if the application was okay, then it's alive. Not, then we're running to recreate the account just prior to the scan. So actively, we always had live accounts in the background so that we could use them for testing.
Запросы, да, мы с учетками разобрались.
We can take those requests. They did work for accounts, but now we have to understand about the app.
Такой интересный подход про
There's an interesting approach about QA.
Или это
You have testers, audit is integration after tests. They work proxy, make some tests, store them, you record them.
Потом берете какой-нибудь сканер, например, тот же, да,
Then you take some scanner, same dust,
пуляете запросы в прод, все классно, вы покрыли большой процент API, там более-менее
percentage
запросы.
APIs with very correct requests. Everything is wonderful. However,
у нас с
we
вами
have a little bit different case. Not really.
Потому что когда мы пытаемся найти конкретные
Because
сущности,
when we're trying to find specific entities, we need specific identifiers. We need identifier announcement, user, chat, something else.
в готовых запросах непонятно, где это все находится. То есть у вас нету метаинформации сейчас.
You don't have meta. It's lost.
В голове у QA находится. И
It's somewhere in the head of the QA. So it's about coverage.
E2E-тесты покрывают критичные сценарии.
We test our critical scenarios, yes. No question about it. But what about the methods?
А непонятно.
Maybe something is not covered. Well, it's not clear. And if we don't understand it, what use for coverage. And
Который
most likely there's not going to be a handle which can guess have not been used and nobody has been removing it.
еще есть для...
So what else do we have for the
Было бы
source of the request?
Есть
Well, that would be wonderful. There's a full descriptions, machine readable. You take it, you parse it, craft requests on the basis of it, and then as if you can profit. Wonderful. However, do we have Swagger everywhere? Oh my God, look, not everywhere. Swagger contains URL. And these URLs, they do comply to specific microservices. Well, maybe some domain which this microservice is available. Maybe this is a common domain to which this microservice is available, and we can have several of those domains. And URL for APIs and endpoint, there can be a lot of them.
У них может быть разные проверки
And
реализованы.
they can have a lot of different checkups realized on prior stage. That's why we have to check everything.
И отслеживать
When it has to be upgraded, and we have to search the history because we would like to understand what about this endpoint that was hanging out here. We would like to understand.
Или, может быть, мы его
I haven't we know. Maybe we have noticed it, but for some reason we decided that everything was all right with it, or maybe everything was all right with it.
пришлось писать достаточно большой
Then we had to write a very neat and complicated API collection service.
что в итоге получилось.
How did it work, and what did we get in the result?
Есть вот большущий роутинг.
We have a big route.
Граф,
Routing is a graph
то есть как они
for all
маршрутируются,
requests,
начиная
how
с
to be
внешнего
routed
с
from
кучей
the
доменов,
external Nginx with a lot of domains to Kubernetes
конкретные свагер.
in a specific microservice, in specific swaggers, in specific map.
Пришлось брать
What did we have to do? We had to take configs from Input and mix. We had to parse them, pull them into this graph, and then specific builder for Swagger API had to be done. Somewhere it has to be done automatically. Somewhere we pull these commands manually. We have hash service contracts, and code gen helps us to achieve high coverage in Swaggers. All this is in pulled from Git. Why from Git? Because we get this description as early and as fast prior to all these get into production or even the feature. Then we keep cache in order to do it as fast as possible. So how does it look in First of all, we have a routing graph, and for every node, for every domain, for every microservice, you have another small subgraph of everything that is available from this point, from this node. For example, we have a domain. From this domain, as a result, we have two API methods available, and only that. And we know this as a guarantee. In addition to that, we were able to nail constant identifiers for everything that we have domain services. They have constant identifiers, and we can follow them. We have a domain which allows us to look and manage all of this. And therefore, if any data is missing and it's not available anymore to the admin, we can add this data to help scanner and the service to work better. And is regularly being updated. What we provide the important thing is API for cooperation with our data scanner that we are speaking about today. This is the usual task. Why? Because high coverage can be achieved, and this is a very way of achieving. I'm not able to speak about all of these details, so I will advertise my previous presentation in the safe code. By this link, you can watch the presentation. You can watch a little bit later September. So let's go back to us. How the scanner works, our data scanner. What do? We have the preparations. We select domain, we have some of those with our domains, like to cover, and they are being scanned one by one. And we receive data. As a data, we have test accounts and test execution where the specific data has been updated. Those tests up. Then the simplest stage is to do all the requests and get answer. Well, at a very specific moment, they are done from the name of three users. So this is request for authorization and other users in the framework of one role. Why do we need it? Well, I'm going to tell you about it. Well, afterwards, everything is very simple. Scanner tries to find it. And everything is very simple here. It's a search or subline. Answers no rocket science. So what do we get in the result? This is the first iteration, MVP. We've got not a very big coverage, only 20%. However, we were already able to remove 40% of legacy API points, given to 404, and they stayed there. Very important. Only one parameter. Mobile phone, and we started thinking, well, quantitative figures are understandable, will cover the reach of the API, everything together, but we would like to have a qualitative. Why don't we expand data set to... For example, right now we're searching, but we can also search not only for the phone, we can search for any type of data which is interesting to us. If some data type is not interesting to us, we can point it out. Well, this data type is not interesting to us, and it looks cool. That's right. We have to take all the tools from somewhere, and for this purpose, we have several sources. First one is so-called info model. It looks like that on the right. It's a simple, big dictionary, which contains a lot of parameters, meta information, the parameters of the announcement. It's important to know. For example, you have announcement, review, rent, and you have a number of these. You have announcement rented, the number of apartments will be available there. In this announcement, there will be a description of the car, color, engine, like that. And these parameters are being managed by info models, and they provide us API to receive all of the parse it and put it in our model.
Дальше. Мы поняли, что разработчики
So we have understood that developers are very creative people, very creative people.
синонимов и придумывают названия для переменных.
A dictionary of synonyms and create names for variables, so they don't
Одинаковые абсолютно данные.
That's why we have absolutely similar data.
Параметрах по
The similar data is stored in different name parameters. Email can be called anyway. It can be called receiver, responder, from whatever can be used as a name. And we have understood why don't we try and tag all service contracts in a way so that we would know types of data. The idea was following invent universal names. Basically, about dozens of important data is available. Ask command to tag these data in a contract. Well, it gives us a profit, and it looks very simple for us. We have abstraction over RPC contract, and by this comment, you can tag it. So in this field, you definitely have an email. But you do remember 3,000 microservices we have, and this is a lot. We have not realized it. But we have conducted a pilot. Before the pilot, we had to extend the number of data types that identity of 10 is not sufficient. And right now we have more than 100. Optimization development, I didn't know the pilot the pilot was successful. And we are going to tag. And I think I will share with you the result of this tag. Whether it gave us the profit we wanted to get from it. What else do we? Same software. We have a lot of different these parameters can be pulled from. For example, we have service, this service, we have Swagger, we have a certain parameter. This is your URL like. What can we take?
Но нужно быть аккуратнее с правилами дедупликации, конечно. И разметить уровень видимости.
And pull this level of visibility on this parameter.
Основная цель какая?
How will this look like?
Ловит канареек.
We have Sylvester who catch canaries. So we have to do it in such a way so that for every parameters from Swagger, we could receive a canary. And description will be like that. Take a request for the service like this. It's going to be a method, and from this method, from the request, this path, pull the data. And then we are saying, well, this canary, nobody should see, or somebody should see it, and we call it the level of privacy and level of visibility. Let's think about it. What is this detect for our scanner? What they are. So, the data obviously can be public. What does it mean? It means that user, the data owner, any other user, even anonymous user, request without authorization, everybody can see this data, and this is normal. For example, it's name of the announcement, everybody can see it, wonderful, nothing bad about it. The second one is a private data. Well, nobody sees them. Nobody should see the user password, even he himself. If it's going to be in the answer, we do something wrong. Then it's more interesting. Then we have partially private data. What do we mean by that? For example, in our profile, look at them, but any other person cannot look at them any other way, because we save this data and we don't show it to anybody. There is another scenario, which is called only for the authorized ones. So we are removing the anonymous. But this is more for a business scenario than scenario for security people. Then everything becomes even more fun. We have users. Do you remember, I've been mentioning users of the company. The company, it's a paid user, which can hold any number of hundreds of thousands of accounts of users. They help the company user to answer the requests, write with the clients, create orders for delivery, and manage all of these. They have tens of thousands of announcements, and now it's much more fun because there are roles. For the employees, there are roles for the admins, there is a role for the person who manages prioritization of the announcements. They can have visibility for all the announcements or maybe for their announcements, etc. And the company uses the root user. They see what their employees do. It's obvious a certain control should be done over them. However, the company doesn't see anything that employee does in his own account because he has a possibility of switching, and he's a simple physical entity as a person can post them through the same account, and the company will not be able to see that because it's not for them. Well, we have found a detect. Wonderful. We have to do something with it. In order to do something with it, we have to fix it. To fix it, we have to understand where was it found. So what do we see? We have the URL. For example, it has two identifiers, and we can guess about a file. This is the first identifier because it has the word profile. The second identifier is it has the word item. But unfortunately, not all URLs are like that. There is a much fun URL, 3 identifiers like that. What do they mean? Don't know. We don't have enough information at this moment of time. At least right now, we see the URL. How did we do it previously? We took the URL from the work. We have all the URLs that we know, all the API endpoints. Okay, what we do? We should search regular. It's regular. So then we find some endpoint. Everything works as if everything's all right. We are cool. How does this scheme work in reality? In reality, we have this regularity. What happens? All the URLs go to me. And that's it. You've lost. You don't know where it come from. Okay, you will note this one. Check for this regular as a last priority, but there's a lot of them, and periodically they come and disappear. It's hard to support, not convenient, really. So what have we done? We started thinking, well, we've done this big system which collects APIs. It has metadata, it has identifiers for every API method. We know where this method is located, in which service, who is responsible for it. And then all this information, we create the request, put it to a scanner, and then we do the back search. And what do we have? Crazy. Why do we do that? We have everything. What have we done? Yes, we have pulled meta information into our scanner, and then from these operations we take identifiers of API methods. Okay, it can be mapped for the user. Wonderful, good. But we have also eDust, if it would be wonderful. With Dust, this option didn't work because Dust doesn't remember about meta information and URL from which it has started, and everything was like that, and search through regulars and a certain load on OPSEC. Okay, let's try to look at a bigger picture. How does this scanner exist in all other processes of Avito security? Because the fact that we have a detect is just the beginning of its path. What do we have? We have data scanner. We collect APIs in our services. We prepare test accounts. We are building privacy levels. Then this data scanner does requests to feature of the branch. In the branch feature, we are preparing it separate because not every developer deploys a feature, but we want each one of them to do that. What else happens? Then we deduplicate detects. Why do we need a lot of works on one API method? And then we have a detect. Wonderful, great. Then we have to do something with it.
Как правило, мы хотим, чтобы этот
As a rule, we want this detect to be fixed in a result.
все детекты сливаем в наш
And for this, all detects are put in our SOR.
класс.
And I would tell you that this is a SOC class solution. And in the year 2019, I didn't know this word. That's why we have an event. We call it swap.
Он генерит репорт.
What does it do? It generates reports. It generates matrices. It allows us. It allows OPSEC's workers to validate detects through SWOT interface. And after validation, these detects can be sent to the owners of API methods. And we have these objectives for fix. If automatic works, everything was mapped properly, then the order goes to fix by itself. If the automatics didn't work somewhere, then OPSEC had to work manually and find the owner manually, and then report something that automatic didn't work and it has to be corrected. And a second consumer of these detects is in parallel with SOR, because it's a quality gate. So this is something that allows us to block publication of new API method. I'm speaking about new method. If, just in case, we have discovered something there and people are trying to pull it outside and there are some unfixed detects, we do it, we stop it, we say, guys, it doesn't work. In the beginning, we have to correct it.
Давайте немножечко про user experience.
Okay, let's speak about user experience right now. It's understandable. We have several types of users, but I'm going to tell you how did we improve user experience for OPSEC. So you have a certain detect. This is a detect of dynamic scanner. And as a rule, when it comes, this dynamic environment where it exists, it's alive. But when OPSEC gets to it, it's not a fact. So then it's important to understand, to speak about the retraceability of these detects and their understandability. For example, the OPSEC sees this text. What does he see? He sees the data type that we have discovered. It could be the phone, VIN number of the car, it can be the password. Well, then what else do we have? We have a rule to understand what happened. It's important to understand what have been searching for it and why did it work. For example, we have a rule, don't show the password and never show the phone number. That's understandable. Then OPSEC should be helped. If he's going to be trying to reproduce the detects, he needs to know where to look. Okay, we have found it in the body of reply, we have found it in a header, or we found it in URL because we have done some clever redirect and gave it to them. And what happens next? There is a detect. It's not understandable whether it's a valid detect. We should make a request by ourselves, look in dynamics, what really was happening out there. However, there is a peculiarity. It happens that detect came Friday night. OPSEC has already left. He's resting. It's Monday. What does it mean? Users leave 8 hours a day, which means test users are not working from detect anymore. We have to do something about it. How can we help the OPSEC? We can do this. There's a certain URL which forms all the settings for creating the proper user with proper role, with proper data. OPSEC follows the link, and then what starts? It's a staging. The staging can be a little bit unavailable right now. Maybe you have to wait 1 minute and everything's going to be all right, or maybe 30 minutes. If you will have to wait for 30 minutes, then OPSEC will blow aside because he's unshaved. He could do something else, which means time to acknowledgement, time of reaction to detect is growing. And we don't want that because there could be something important out there. That's why we decided to follow another path, because we have a service which holds actual accounts specifically for us, because we've been taking care of this. So we have changed the format of cooperation and we said, okay, take the ready user from here. Here's all the data. There is one data owner, another is not data owner, and they are working for that. Next one. That would be pretty cool, so that system would give their own identifiers in a request, but then it's not being realized. That's why AppSec will have to work with his hands manually, and then after this he will be able to reproduce the request and understand whether it's a valid work and should we move it further in the flow. So we came to matrices. It's very important to point out here that you cannot just take and find a reliable way of covering matrix through APIs, because what is 100% not clear? What can be taken for the source of the truth? So we decided to follow several paths simultaneously. And the first thing we're searching for, we compare the coverage by domains, by Nginx blocks. You have URL, and you try to match. Everything's wonderful, it's 97%, it's very understandable. It reflects only the fact that you have found this API endpoint and made a request for it, but it's not a fact that this request was successful. Maybe it has returned an error and you didn't see data inside of it. The next approach is tracing logs. What is so good about them? Because they are collected for every microservice, which means that every microservice provides to you a certain cross-section and you can compare through it. Well, the coverage is lower here, 75%. Why? Because there's a certain number of non-standard microservices and we have not supported them in the general flow, but they are less critical because they are in interesting domains and they are not available there. Next one, we have a matrix of successibility of request formation. What does it mean? You have received a Swagger with method description. This Swagger has to be properly parsed. You have to take all the meta information. You have to put the data from the canary. And important, you shouldn't have non-valid parameters inside of it, so that this request wouldn't hold any not understandable irregularities. So we had to work on this and we have achieved 100% success. We don't have those methods where some errors would be jumping out. And then we have the accessibility of a request formation matrix. It's right now 80%, which means we provide 80% guarantee of methods and they are covered by successful requests. So it returns us at least once reply 200 with some data. Why only once? Well, it's another important moment. If you have a canary which has to work for partial privacy and you request it from the name of the data owner, everything's okay, and you have the answer 200. From another user, you might have 404, 403, you might have redirect to authorization, to some error, to evoke data. But this is normal. This is the way how it's supposed to work, because the user did not see the canary, and that's how it's supposed to be. So it is very important to do the deduplication for the permit. What else? AppSec load is also a very important story. It involves false positives, and there are few of them. There are very few of them. Less than 10%, which means, as a rule, if we get a detect, it's valid, everything's wonderful, AppSecs are happy. But in the process of system operation, it works more than a year and a half. We have discovered some incompliances of data visibility. What does it mean? It means that we could show something to somebody, something extra. Fortunately, it was successfully discovered and it didn't go into production. Then we had another important moment. Well, it's understandable, it's not free. We had to tune up the system, develop the system, etc. And from the very beginning, we went into the development of scanner of data scanner. So we took API, we corrected the request, search for canaries. It was more or less easy. 3 months for the development, for the full launch with all fine-tunes. And we've been preparing API and additional 9 months, because in the beginning there was a small coverage. We wanted to understand why, we wanted to find the approach, but there was a reference to the history of my presentation of safe code, and it was described in a very good, detailed description. We don't finish the development completely because there are better systems. So what do we want to do here? We want to go into this inter-service contract tagging and pull information from it by data types and follow it, I hope, with a higher level of richness. Also would like to support Swagger parameters. They have been supported on the MVP level. There are several dozens of them, and will be tens of thousands in the future. And the most important thing, shift left, as usual. Right now, it's a deploy branch feature, usually deploys the whole domain. Domain is too expensive. Scan may take up to 30 minutes if it's a main domain. It's very slow. Developer wants to get a faster feedback. And we dream to make isolated launch of our scanner for API, which has changed in some specific microservice or maybe a group of microservices. It's not so bad. And we hope to reduce the time of scan down to several minutes, maybe seconds if it's going to be one service. And of course, we would like to take care about user experience of our OPSECs in order so that they shouldn't put big parameters manually. Well, as if it's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for not being lazy, coming so early and waking up. If you want to evaluate my presentation, please follow the QR code from one side. If you want to write directly to me, welcome. Can follow the another QR code. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sasha. Cool presentation. And we are going to questions and answers. Question number 1. Which scanners do you use in addition to Dust? Right now we have 2 scanners. Even in Dust we have 2 scanners. There's open source scanner. What it is? ZAP, yeah. And proprietary scanner we also have, and then our data scanner as well. To all this story is connected. That's how we do it. Thank you. Next question. You've told us that during the API to ngist config, you have the list of handlers for Swagger description. How do you get parameters of for every URL? Oh, very good question. Yes, they are not there. And just for this purpose, we are going to the code and we pass from it description of contracts, description of Swaggers, if they're available. If Swaggers is not available and contract is available, we generate these Swaggers, and then from there, we pull everything. Clear? Thank you very much. No more questions? Super. I have to select the best question. I like the question about the data, the last question. If we have the Z-Shade user, give him the gift. Thank you, Sasha.